My name is Emily Carter. I am 32 years old, and the night my own brother threw a garbage bag at my feet was the night my entire life changed. Before I tell you how I made him regret every single syllable he spat at me and my daughter, and how the tables turned in a way that the entire city is still talking about, tell me something. What time is it where you are right now? And where are you watching from? I really want to know who is standing in my corner today. I need to take you back to that night. It was Christmas Eve. The kind of cold that settles deep in your bones and makes your fingers ache. I was sitting in the back of a yellow taxi, clutching my 7-year-old daughter, Mia, close to my chest. We weren't in a luxury car. We weren't wearing designer clothes. I had on a winter coat I'd bought at a thrift store 3 years ago, and Mia was wearing a jacket that was just a little too tight in the shoulders. I told the taxi driver to stop a block away from the house. I didn't want my brother, Kevin, to see us arriving in a cab. He would have made a comment about it. He always did. "Mommy, are you okay?" Mia asked, her big brown eyes looking up at me. She's so smart for her age. Too smart. She knew I was shaking, and it wasn't from the cold. "I'm fine, baby," I lied. "We're going to see Grandma and Uncle Kevin. It's going to be fun." Fun. That was the last word I should have used. We walked the rest of the way to Kevin's new house. It was a sprawling McMansion in the suburbs, the kind with pillars out front that are too big for the porch and a lawn that looks like it's been manicured with nail scissors. Kevin had been promoted to regional sales director at Sterling Global 6 months ago, and he hadn't stopped talking about it since. He posted about his salary, his bonuses, and his grind set on social media every single day. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. My sister, Lisa, opened it. She was wearing a red dress that probably cost more than my rent. She looked me up and down, her eyes lingering on my scuffed boots. "Oh," she said, not moving out of the way. "You actually came. Merry Christmas, Lisa," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, Auntie Lisa," Mia chirped, holding out a small, wrapped box. Lisa didn't take the box. She just stepped back inside. "Wipe your feet. Kevin just had these floors redone and he'll flip if you track slush in." We walked into the living room. It was warm, smelling of pine needles and expensive cologne. My mother, Margaret, was sitting on a white leather sofa, holding a glass of wine. She didn't get up. She didn't smile. She just glanced at us over the rim of her glass. "You're late," Mom said. "The traffic was bad." I apologized, taking off Mia's coat. Then Kevin walked in. He was wearing a suit even though it was just family. He held a tumbler of whiskey and looked like he was posing for a magazine cover that nobody wanted to read. "Well, well," Kevin sneered. "The prodigal sister returns. And she brought the baggage." He looked at Mia. He didn't say hello. He just called her baggage. I felt a flash of heat in my chest, but I pushed it down. I was used to this. I had been the black sheep ever since I got pregnant with Mia at 25 and refused to name the father. To them, I was a failure. Cautionary tale. I had ruined my potential. "I brought gifts," I said, trying to change the subject. I placed 2 hand-knitted scarves on the table. I had spent weeks making them. The yarn was soft, high-quality wool I had saved up to buy. Kevin picked one up with 2 fingers, like it was a dead rat. "Knitted? Really, Emily? What are we, pilgrims?" Lisa laughed. A sharp, brittle sound. "It's quaint. Maybe I can use it to dust the Mercedes." My heart sank, but I stayed quiet. For Mia. Just get through dinner, I told myself. Just let Mia see her grandmother, and then we leave. Dinner was a nightmare. They sat us at the far end of the table near the kitchen door. Kevin spent the entire meal bragging. He talked about his new watch, his stock portfolio, and how he was the golden boy at Sterling Global. "The chairman knows who I am," Kevin boasted, cutting into his steak. "I'm on the fast track to VP. We don't tolerate dead weight at Sterling. It's all about excellence." He looked pointedly at me. "You could learn a thing or two about excellence, Emily. Instead of whatever this is." He gestured vaguely at my existence. "I'm happy, Kevin," I said quietly. "Happy?" Mom scoffed. You live in a two-bedroom apartment. You drive a beat-up sedan. Oh wait, you don't even have a car right now, do you? I heard you sold it. I sold it to put money into Mia's college fund, I said. College fund. Kevin laughed, choking on his wine. Save your money. Jeans don't lie. She'll probably end up waiting tables just like her mom. Mia dropped her fork, clattered loudly against the china. She looked down, her face turning red. That's enough, I said, my voice shaking. Don't talk about my daughter like that. I'll talk however I want in my house, Kevin snapped. Then it happened. Mia reached for her water glass. Her hand was trembling because she was trying not to cry. She knocked it over. The water spilled. It wasn't red wine. It wasn't grape juice. It was just clear water. It soaked into the corner of the beige rug under the table. The room went silent. Kevin stood up so fast his chair fell backward. You little brat, he screamed. It's just water, I cried, grabbing a napkin to dab it up. It'll dry. That is a Persian silk rug, Kevin roared. His face turned a violent shade of purple. I paid $12,000 for that rug. Get away from it. You're making it worse with your cheap napkins. He marched over to the closet near the foyer. He came back holding a large, black, heavy-duty garbage bag. I stood up, pulling Mia behind me. Kevin, calm down. I'll pay for the cleaning. Pay for it? Kevin laughed, a cruel, manic sound. With what money, Emily? Your food stamps. He grabbed my coat from the rack. Then Mia's jacket. He stuffed them into the garbage bag. Kevin, stop, I yelled. I am sick of this, Kevin shouted. He swept his arm across the table where my knitted scarves were sitting. He shoved them into the bag too. Then he grabbed my purse. You come in here, dragging your poverty into my success, he spat. You embarrass me. You embarrass this family. He threw the bag at my feet. It hit my shins with a heavy thud. We don't feed mistakes here, Kevin said, his voice dropping to a low, venomous hiss. Take your bastard child and go eat from a dumpster. That's where you belong. I looked at Lisa. She was smirking, typing something on her phone. Finally, she chuckled. The trash is taking itself out. I looked at my mother. Mom, I whispered. Are you going to let him do this? Mom swirled her wine. She didn't even look up. You raised her to be clumsy, Emily. And you know how much Kevin values his things. You should go. My heart broke. Not for me, it had broken for me years ago. It broke for Mia. I saw the light go out in her eyes. She realized, in that exact moment, that these people didn't love her. And something inside me snapped. It wasn't a snap of rage. It was the snap of a tether being cut. I was free. I bent down and picked up the garbage bag. It was heavy, but I didn't struggle. I stood up straight. I looked Kevin dead in the eye. You're right, Kevin, I said. My voice was calm, eerily calm. We don't belong here. Get out, he barked. We're leaving, I said. But remember this moment. Remember exactly what you said, because you will never see us again. And when you realize what you've done, it will be too late. I'm trembling, Kevin mocked, waving his hands sarcastically. Go cry to your baby daddy. Oh wait, you don't have one. I took Mia's hand. Come on, baby. Let's go home. We walked to the door. I didn't look back. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped out into the biting wind. The snow was falling harder now. Behind me, I heard Kevin slam the door and lock the deadbolt. We were standing on the porch, holding a garbage bag of our belongings, in the freezing cold. But we weren't waiting for a taxi. The wind bit at my cheeks, but I didn't feel the cold. I felt a fire burning in my stomach. Mia was sobbing quietly against my leg. Mommy, I'm sorry, she hiccuped. I didn't mean to ruin the rug. I dropped the garbage bag on the porch tiles and knelt down, grabbing her shoulders. Listen to me, Mia. You didn't ruin anything. They did. They are ugly, mean people, and we are never, ever going back there. Do you understand? She nodded, wiping her nose with her mitten. Just then, Twin beams of bright white light cut through the falling snow. A low, powerful hum vibrated in the air. Slowly, turning into the driveway, was a car that looked like a shadow made solid. It was long, sleek, and midnight black. The Spirit of Ecstasy hood ornament caught the porch light. A Rolls-Royce Phantom. It glided to a stop right in front of the steps, crushing the pristine snow Kevin was so worried about. The front door of the house flew open behind me. Kevin must have seen the headlights. "Who the hell is driving on my driveway?" Kevin yelled, stepping out. Lisa and Mom crowded behind him. "If that's a delivery truck turning around, I'm suing." The back door of the Rolls-Royce opened. A driver in a uniform stepped out, holding a large black umbrella. But he wasn't opening the door for himself. He opened the rear passenger door. A man stepped out. He was tall, wearing a charcoal wool coat over a bespoke suit that cost more than Kevin's entire car. He had dark hair dusted with snowflakes, and eyes that were usually warm but were currently sharp as steel. It was Alexander, my husband. Kevin's jaw literally dropped. I heard Lisa gasp. Even Mom stepped onto the porch, shielding her eyes from the glare of the headlights. "Is that?" Kevin stammered. "Is that Mr. Sterling?" He recognized him. Of course he did. Kevin had a framed picture of the company leadership chart in his home office. He worshipped Alexander Sterling. He wanted to be Alexander Sterling. Alexander didn't even look at them. He walked straight up the steps, his eyes locked on me and Mia. He saw the garbage bag at my feet. He saw Mia's tear-streaked face. He saw me shivering without a coat because it was stuffed in the bag. His jaw tightened. A muscle in his cheek twitched. "Emily," he said, his voice low and dangerous. He took off his own coat and wrapped it around my shoulders. It was warm and smelled like sandalwood and safety. "Daddy," Mia cried out, running to him. "Daddy," Kevin whispered. The word sounded like it was choking him. Alexander scooped Mia up into his arms. He held her tight, kissing her frozen cheek. "I'm here, princess. I've got you." He turned to look at Kevin. I wish you could have seen the color drain from my brother's face. It was like watching paint dry in reverse. He went from angry red to a sickly, paste-like white. "And Mr. Sterling?" Kevin stuttered. He took a nervous step forward, wiping his sweaty palms on his pants. "Sir? I didn't know you knew my sister. I work for you. Kevin Carter, Regional Sales." Alexander looked at Kevin the way you look at something you stepped in on the sidewalk. "I know who you are," Alexander said. His voice was calm, but it carried across the yard like a gunshot. "And I see exactly who you are." He looked at the garbage bag. "Is that my wife's property?" "Wife?" Lisa shrieked. "She's married? To him?" "Yes," Alexander said coldly. "She is." He signaled to his driver, who immediately came up the steps, grabbed the trash bag, and placed it in the trunk of the Rolls-Royce with more respect than Kevin had shown me my entire life. "Sir, please." Kevin started to sweat, despite the freezing temperature. "This is a misunderstanding. Family squabble. You know how it is. If you had known I was powerful, you would have treated her with respect?" Alexander asked. "That's your defense? That you only treat people with dignity if you think they can give you something?" Kevin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "Come, Emily," Alexander said, guiding me down the stairs with a hand on the small of my back. I stopped at the bottom of the steps and looked back at them one last time. They looked small, pathetic, huddled together in the doorway of a house they probably couldn't afford, terrified of the man holding my hand. "I told you," I said softly. "You'll never see us again." We got into the car. The heavy door thudded shut, sealing out the cold and the cruelty. The interior was lined with soft leather. The heater was already running. As we pulled away, I looked out the tinted window. Kevin was still standing on the porch in the snow, watching us leave, looking like his world had just ended. Because it had. Alexander took my hand and squeezed it. "Are you okay?" "I am now," I said. Let me tell you how this happened. How a waitress ended up married to a billionaire and why nobody knew. 5 years ago, I was working double shifts at a diner. Alexander came in late one night. He looked exhausted. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in jeans and a t-shirt. He ordered coffee and collapsed. He had a minor heart episode from stress. I was the one who called 911. I rode with him to the hospital because he had no one else with him. I stayed until he woke up. I didn't know who he was. I just thought he was a lonely guy who worked too hard. We started talking. I brought him soup. We fell in love. When I found out who he was, I almost ran, but he begged me to stay. He loved that I didn't care about his money. We got married in a private ceremony in Italy. I asked him to keep it a secret. I wanted to protect Mia. And, deep down, I wanted to give my family one last chance to love me for me, not for my husband's bank account. I wanted to believe that if I just tried hard enough, they would accept us. Tonight proved how wrong I was. What do you want to do? Alexander asked me as the car merged onto the highway. I looked at Mia, who had fallen asleep in his lap, clutching the lapel of his expensive jacket. I thought about the garbage bag in the trunk. I thought about the word mistake. They hurt her, Alex, I said. They made her feel like she shouldn't exist. Alexander's expression hardened. He pulled out his phone. He dialed a number. Blackwood, he said into the phone. I need you to initiate a full internal audit of the Northeast Sales Division, specifically Kevin Carter's accounts. Yes, tonight, and prepare the legal team. I want everything scrutinized. Every expense report. Every client meeting. Every cent. He hung up and looked at me. They threw you out like trash, he whispered. So I'm going to clean house. I didn't witness what happened inside that house after we left, but I know exactly how it played out. I know because Sarah, an old friend of mine who works as an administrative assistant in Kevin's office, told me everything later. And honestly, knowing them, I can picture every desperate second. The moment the taillights of the Rolls-Royce disappeared around the corner, the silence on the porch must have been deafening. Kevin didn't move. He was frozen, snow accumulating on his gelled hair. That wasn't real, Lisa whispered, her voice trembling. That was a prank. Emily hired an actor. She has to have. That was Alexander Sterling, Kevin said, his voice sounding hollow. I've seen him at the annual gala. I've heard his voice on shareholders' calls. That was him. He turned around and stumbled back into the house, looking like a man who had just seen a ghost. Mom, Kevin said, pacing the living room floor, ignoring the snow he was tracking onto his precious silk rug. Mom, did you know? Did she tell you? Margaret was sitting on the sofa, clutching her wine glass so hard her knuckles were white. She never said a word. She said she was seeing someone in consulting. She never said it was Sterling. She set me up, Kevin yelled, throwing his hands in the air. That spiteful little witch set me up. She came here looking poor on purpose. She wanted me to yell at her so he would see it. You did throw a garbage bag at her, Kevin? Lisa pointed out unhelpfully, pouring herself a massive drink. And you called her kid a bastard in front of the CEO. Shut up, Lisa, Kevin roared. You laughed. You're on tape laughing. On tape, Margaret asked sharply. What do you mean? Kevin stopped pacing. His face went gray. The doorbell, he whispered. I installed a Ring camera last week. It records audio and video of the porch. He scrambled for his phone, his fingers shaking so badly he dropped it twice. He pulled up the app. He played the footage. The audio was crisp. We don't feed mistakes here. Go eat from a dumpster. And then the clear image of Alexander Sterling walking up the steps, hearing every word. Oh my God, Kevin moaned. He sank onto the floor, putting his head in his hands. I'm dead. I'm professionally dead. If he fires me, the mortgage, the car payments, the credit cards. Can't you just apologize? Mom asked, her voice rising in panic. Call her. Call Emily right now. Tell her we were stressed. Tell her it was a joke. A joke. Kevin looked at his mother with wild eyes. I threw her out in a blizzard, Mom. I called his stepdaughter a mistake. But desperation makes people do stupid things. Kevin dialed my number. I was in the limo watching the city lights blur by. My phone buzzed. Kevin calling. I showed the screen to Alexander. Don't answer, Alexander said. Let him sweat. I declined the call. It buzzed again. And again. Then a text from Mom. Emily, pick up. We're so worried about you and Mia in this storm. Please come back, let's talk. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. Now they're worried. Back at the house, the panic was turning into terror. Kevin knew something that Lisa and Mom didn't. He wasn't just worried about being rude. He was worried about the numbers. See, Kevin had been living a lifestyle he couldn't afford. The house, the Mercedes, the designer suits, it was all a facade. To maintain it, he had been borrowing from the company. He had been padding expense reports, diverting client entertainment funds, and taking kickbacks from vendors. He assumed he would never get caught because he was the golden boy of the region. But now, he had just declared war on the man who owned the auditors. I need to go to the office, Kevin said suddenly, standing up. It's Christmas Eve, Lisa said. I need to fix the files. Kevin screamed. I need to delete the emails. If he looks at the books, I'm going to jail. Lisa, not fired, jail. He grabbed his keys and ran out the door. I can only imagine that drive. Kevin, speeding through the snow in his leased Mercedes, heart pounding against his ribs, knowing that every second counted. But he was too late. When he arrived at the Sterling Global office building downtown, his keycard didn't work. The little light on the reader turned red. Access denied. He tried again. Red. He pounded on the glass doors. The night security guard, a man named Tom whom Kevin had ignored for 3 years, walked slowly to the door. Tom, open up. My card is demagnetized. Kevin shouted. Tom looked at him through the glass. He held up a clipboard. He shook his head. Sorry, Mr. Carter, Tom said, his voice muffled by the glass. I have orders from corporate. No access for you. Pending investigation. Corporate? Who at corporate? Mr. Blackwood, Tom said. The chairman's chief of staff. Go home, Kevin. Kevin slid down the glass door, sitting in the snow. He realized then that the garbage he had thrown out was the only person who could have saved him, and he had burned that bridge to ash. Christmas Day passed in a blur of warmth and love, the kind I had always dreamed of for Mia. Alexander filled the living room of our penthouse with gifts, but the best gift was simply the safety. Knowing that nobody was going to yell at us. Nobody was going to judge us. But the real reckoning was scheduled for Monday morning. I woke up early. Alexander was already awake, buttoning a white dress shirt. He looked at me in the mirror. You don't have to come today, Emily, he said. I can handle it. I sat up. No. I spent 32 years hiding from them. I spent my whole life letting them tell me who I was. Today, I want to show them who I am. I got dressed. For the first time in my life, I didn't dress to disappear. I put on a tailored navy power suit that Alexander had bought for me in Milan. I wore heels that clicked with authority on the floor. I pulled my hair back into a sleek bun. I put on the diamond earrings Alexander gave me for our anniversary. I looked in the mirror. I didn't see the scared single mom in a thrift store coat. I saw Mrs. Sterling. We dropped Mia off at her private school. She was safe, happy, and oblivious to the war that was about to happen. Then, the driver took us to the Sterling Global headquarters. The atmosphere in the building was tense. News travels fast in corporate environments. Everyone knew something was happening. The auditors had been there all weekend. When we walked into the lobby, the air shifted. People stopped talking. They stared. Not just at Alexander, but at me. They didn't recognize me at first. Then I saw the whispers start. Isn't that Kevin's sister? The one he said was a loser? Why is she holding the chairman's hand? We got into the private executive elevator. The numbers climbed higher. 10, 20, 30. Are you ready? Alexander asked, squeezing my hand. Yes, I said. My heart was pounding, but my head was clear. The elevator doors opened on the 35th floor, the sales department, Kevin's floor. It was dead silent. Usually, this floor is buzzing with phones and chatter. Today, you could hear a pin drop. Every employee was at their desk, heads down, pretending to work, but eyes darting toward us. Kevin was in his office. The blinds were drawn, but I could see his shadow pacing back and forth. Alexander didn't go to his own office on the top floor. He walked straight to the center of the sales floor. "Everyone gather round," Alexander said. He didn't shout. He didn't have to. His voice commanded absolute obedience. Chairs scraped. People stood up. About 50 employees gathered in a semicircle. Kevin's door opened. He stepped out. He looked terrible. He hadn't shaved. His eyes were bloodshot. He was wearing the same suit from Friday, rumpled and stained. He looked like a man who hadn't slept in 72 hours. He saw me. His eyes widened. He looked at my suit, my shoes, the way I held my head high. "Mr. Sterling," Kevin croaked. "Sir, I can explain." "Explain what, Kevin?" Alexander asked pleasantly. "Can you explain why the audit team found a $500,000 discrepancy in your division's budget over the last 2 years? Gasps rippled through the room. Kevin's colleagues looked at each other in shock. That's a clerical error," Kevin stammered, sweating profusely. I was fixing it." "And the kickbacks from the vendor in Ohio?" Alexander continued, stepping closer. "Or the company card expenses for client dinners that were actually payments for a Porsche lease?" Kevin was shaking now. "Sir, please, can we discuss this in private? Family to family?" "Family?" Alexander laughed. It was a cold, sharp sound. "Now you want to talk about family?" Alexander turned to the large presentation screen on the wall. "Blackwood, play the file." "No!" Kevin shouted. "Please don't." But it was too late. The screen flickered to life. It was the Ring camera footage from Christmas Eve. The audio was amplified through the conference room speakers. "We don't feed mistakes here. Take your bastard child and go eat from a dumpster." The sound of Kevin's voice echoed off the walls. The image of him throwing the black garbage bag at me was clear as day. The reaction in the room was visceral. People covered their mouths. Sarah, my friend, glared at Kevin with pure disgust. Even his work friends looked away, ashamed to be associated with him. "This is the man who leads you," Alexander said to the staff, gesturing to the screen where Kevin was currently yelling at his own sister. "A man who treats his own blood like garbage because he thinks he has power." Alexander turned to Kevin. "You told my wife that she didn't belong. You told her to go eat from a dumpster." Alexander took a step forward, towering over Kevin. "So, I'm granting your wish, Kevin. You no longer belong here." The silence in the room was heavier than the blizzard had been. 50 people held their breath, watching the downfall of a tyrant. Kevin looked small. The arrogance that had defined him for his entire life, the swagger, the cruelty, the sneer, had evaporated, leaving behind a terrified, pathetic man. "Please," Kevin whimpered. Tears were actually forming in his eyes. "I have a mortgage. I have debt. If you fire me, I lose everything." I stepped forward. The click of my heels on the hardwood floor was the only sound in the room. "You should have thought about that before you threw us out in the snow," I said. Kevin looked at me. "Emily, come on. I'm your brother, big brother. Remember when we were kids? I protected you." "You never protected me," I said, my voice steady and loud enough for everyone to hear. "You bullied me. You belittled me. And the moment you got a little bit of power, you tried to crush me. You called my daughter a mistake." I looked him dead in the eye. "Mia is not a mistake. She is the heiress to this entire company." That hit the room like a bomb. The employees gasped again. They looked from me to Alexander to Kevin. "That's right," Alexander said, placing a hand on my shoulder. Mia Sterling Carter. I adopted her legally 3 years ago. Kevin, you didn't just insult your sister. You insulted the future owner of Sterling Global. Kevin looked like he was going to vomit. You're fired, Alexander said. The words were simple, final. For cause, embezzlement, fraud, and gross misconduct. You can't do this, Kevin screamed, suddenly finding a burst of hysterical energy. I built this department. I made you millions. You stole $500,000, Alexander corrected. And as for your department, Alexander turned to the crowd of employees, who here has felt personally victimized, bullied, or threatened by Kevin Carter. Slowly, one hand went up. It was Sarah. Then another, a young guy from accounting. Then another. Within 10 seconds, almost every hand in the room was raised. Kevin looked around, realizing he had no allies. He had ruled by fear, and now the fear was gone. Get him out of here, Alexander ordered. 2 security guards stepped forward. These weren't the night watchmen. These were big, serious men. They grabbed Kevin by the arms. Get off me. Kevin struggled. This is illegal. I'll sue. I'll sue all of you. You'll be hearing from our lawyers regarding the embezzlement charges, Alexander said, calm as ice. I suggest you save your money for a criminal defense attorney instead of a civil suit. They dragged him toward the elevators. As he was being hauled away, Kevin looked back at me. Emily, help me. Mom will never forgive you. She'll hate you for this. I watched him go. I felt a strange sensation. I expected to feel guilty. I had been trained my whole life to feel guilty for upsetting Kevin. But I didn't feel guilt. I felt relief. Mom already hates me. Kevin? I whispered to myself. At least now I have my dignity. The elevator doors closed, shutting off his screams. Alexander turned to the staff. I apologize for the disruption. There will be a comprehensive review of the department's leadership. In the meantime, no one loses their job because of Kevin's crimes. We are going to clean this up. Together. The room erupted in applause. Not polite applause. Real, relieved applause. Sarah ran over and hugged me. I knew it, she whispered. I knew you were special. I'm so proud of you. We left the floor and went up to Alexander's office. I walked over to the window and looked down at the street below. A few minutes later, I saw a tiny figure being escorted out of the building by security. He was holding a cardboard box. It wasn't a garbage bag, but it was close enough. My phone buzzed. It was Mom. You ungrateful brat. What have you done to your brother? He called me crying. How dare you? I looked at the text. Usually my hands would shake. Usually I would type back a frantic apology. Instead I typed, he stole money, Mom. He's going to prison. And if you keep harassing me, I'll block you too. I hit send. Then I blocked her number. I turned around. Alexander was watching me. Are you okay? He asked. I fired my brother, I said, letting the reality sink in. And I blocked my mother. How does it feel? I smiled, a real, genuine smile. It feels like I can finally breathe. But it wasn't over yet. Kevin was gone. But the fallout was just beginning. And there was one more secret I had to reveal. A secret that would destroy whatever excuse my mother had left for treating me like dirt. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings and financial ruin for the Carter family. The part of the family that wasn't me, at least. Sterling Global's legal team was ruthless. They froze Kevin's assets to recover the stolen funds. The Mercedes was repossessed. The McMansion was foreclosed on because Kevin had been paying the mortgage with stolen company money. Kevin was facing 5 to 10 years in prison for corporate fraud and embezzlement. He was out on bail, staying in a cheap motel on the edge of town. A poetic justice that wasn't lost on me. But my mother and Lisa weren't going down without a fight. Or rather, a scene. Without Kevin's income, and with the house gone, they had nowhere to go. They couldn't stay with friends because they had alienated everyone with their snobbery. So they did the only thing they knew how to do. They tried to guilt-trip the Bank of Emily. They found out which hotel we were staying in while our penthouse was being renovated, the Four Seasons. I was in the lobby having tea with Mia when they stormed in. They looked disheveled. Mom was wearing her fur coat, but it looked moth-eaten in the daylight. Lisa looked tired, her roots showing. "There she is," Lisa shouted, pointing a manicured finger at me. "The Duchess of Death herself." Security started to move toward them, but I held up a hand. "It's okay. Let them speak." I told Mia to go play with her nanny in the kids' corner. I didn't want her to hear this. Mom marched up to my table. She slammed her purse down. "Are you happy?" she hissed. "Your brother is ruining his life. We are homeless. We are sleeping in a Motel 6. Emily. Me. Your mother. Kevin ruined his own life, Mom," I said calmly, sipping my tea. "He stole. He lied. He did it for the family," Mom cried. "To give us a good life. Unlike you, who hid your billions and let us struggle." "Struggle?" I raised an eyebrow. "You lived in a mansion. You drank vintage wine. You wore designer clothes. We have nothing now," Lisa cried. "You have to help us. You owe us. We raised you." "You tormented me," I corrected. "We need money," Mom demanded. "We need a place to stay. You have all this?" She gestured around the hotel. "Write us a check. $1 million. This pocket change to you now. And drop the charges against Kevin." I set my teacup down. The clinking sound was sharp. "I can't drop the charges. That's up to the district attorney. And as for money," I reached into my bag and pulled out a file folder. "Do you remember the Angel Fund?" I asked. Mom blinked. What?" "The anonymous donor," Lisa said, her eyes narrowing. "The one who paid for Mom's hip surgery 3 years ago? And paid off my credit card debt last year." "Yes," I said. "The anonymous donor who sent checks every month to help with living expenses when Kevin was supposedly waiting for his bonus." "What about it?" Mom asked. "That was some rich charity." "That was me," I said. The silence that followed was heavy. "What?" Mom whispered. "I sent that money," I said. "Alexander and we wanted to help you. But I knew if I gave it to you directly, you'd just ask for more, or you'd resent me. So I did it anonymously. I paid for your surgery, Mom. I paid for your debt, Lisa. I gave you over $200,000 in the last 3 years." Mom's face paled. She sank into the chair opposite me. "And what did you do?" I continued, my voice trembling with suppressed anger. "You took that money, and you used it to buy expensive dinners where you sat around and mocked me for being poor. You wore clothes bought with my money while calling me a failure." I didn't know," Mom stammered. "You didn't need to know," I snapped. "You should have treated me with respect because I'm your daughter, not because I paid you." Tears streamed down Mom's face, but I couldn't tell if they were genuine or just fear. "I'm done," I said. "I'm cutting off the Angel Fund. No more checks. No more bailouts." "But where will we go?" Lisa asked, her voice small. "I hear Kevin has a room at the motel," I said. "Maybe you can all share. It'll be just like old times." I stood up. "Emily, please." Mom grabbed my wrist. "I'm your mother." I looked at her hand on my wrist, the same hand that had watched Kevin throw a trash bag at me and did nothing. "No," I said, pulling my hand away. "You're just a woman who used to know me. My family is over there." I pointed to Mia, who was laughing with her nanny. "Goodbye, Mom." I walked away. I didn't look back. I knew they were crying. I knew they were terrified. But for the first time in my life, their fear wasn't my burden to carry. I walked over to Mia and picked her up. She smelled like vanilla and innocence. "Ready to go home, Mommy?" she asked. "Yes, baby," I said. "Let's go home." It has been exactly 365 days since I walked off that porch in the snow. 1 year, 52 weeks. And in that time, the world has tilted on its axis. The gravity of my life has shifted from fear to power, from scarcity to abundance, and from shame to an overwhelming, blinding pride. If you have ever been told you were nothing, If you have ever been looked at like you were a stain on someone else's perfect life, I want you to listen closely to what happened next. Because the best revenge isn't anger. It isn't even justice, though we got plenty of that. The best revenge is thriving so completely that the people who hurt you become irrelevant footnotes in your biography. We were preparing for Mia's 8th birthday. But this wasn't just a birthday party with cake and balloons. This was a statement. Alexander and I decided that it was time to introduce Mia to the world properly. Not as a secret, not as a mistake, but as exactly who she was, a Sterling. The event was being held at the Sterling Botanical Gardens, a massive glass-domed conservatory in the city center. The theme was Winter Wonderland, a deliberate reclamation of the season that my family had tried to ruin for us. I stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling mirror in our master bedroom. I was wearing a silver gown that shimmered like liquid moonlight. It was fitted, elegant, and unapologetic. Alexander walked in, adjusting his cufflinks. He stopped when he saw me. "You look dangerous," he said, a smile playing on his lips. "Good," I replied, turning to straighten his tie. "I feel dangerous." "Are you ready for tonight?" he asked. "The press will be there. The board members. It's going to be intense." "I'm not afraid of cameras anymore, Alex," I said. After staring down my brother and mother, a few paparazzi seemed pretty harmless. We went to Mia's room. She was sitting on her bed, kicking her feet. She was wearing a custom-made dress in ice blue, looking like a little princess. But it wasn't the dress that made her special. It was the stack of books next to her. "Mommy, I finished the speech," she said, holding up a piece of paper covered in her neat handwriting. "I did the French version and the Mandarin version too." This was the secret we had kept from everyone, even my family, especially my family. Mia wasn't just smart. She was a prodigy. Alexander had recognized it early on. While Kevin was calling her a bastard and a slow learner because she was shy, Mia was teaching herself to read at age 3. She absorbed languages like a sponge. She played the piano by ear. Kevin had looked at a diamond and called it a piece of glass because he was too stupid to understand its value. "You're going to do great, baby," I said, kissing her forehead. "Are you nervous?" "A little," she admitted. "What if I mess up?" Alexander knelt down. "If you mess up, you just keep going. That's what leaders do. And remember, everyone in that room is there to see you. You own the room, Mia." We drove to the venue. This time we took the Rolls-Royce, but we didn't hide behind tinted windows. We wanted the world to see us. As we arrived, the flashbulbs popped like fireworks. I held my head high. A year ago, I would have ducked. I would have worried about my hair, my clothes, my worthiness. Now I smiled. I walked the red carpet with my husband on one side and my daughter on the other. Inside, the garden was breathtaking. White roses, crystal ice sculptures, and thousands of fairy lights. The elite of the city were there: business tycoons, politicians, celebrities. People who would have looked right through me a year ago were now lining up to shake my hand. "Mrs. Sterling," a senator said, bowing slightly. "An honor to meet you. And this must be the birthday girl." Mia shook his hand firmly. "Enchanté, Monsieur le Sénateur," she said in flawless French. The senator's eyebrows shot up. Impressive. The night went on, a blur of congratulations and champagne. But my mind kept drifting. Couldn't help it. I wondered where they were. I didn't have to wonder long. The universe has a way of showing you exactly what happens when karma comes to collect. Miles away, in a cramped break room at a discount grocery store, my sister Lisa was sitting on a plastic crate. She was wearing a green polyester vest that smelled like onions. Her feet were swollen. She had been standing at the register for 8 hours straight, scanning coupons and dealing with angry customers who yelled at her over 30-cent price differences. She pulled out her cracked smartphone. It was the only luxury she had left. She opened social media to numb her brain for her 15-minute break. And there it was. Every news feed, every trending topic. Live, the Sterling heiress debuts. Billionaire Alexander Sterling introduces daughter Mia to the world. Lisa stared at the screen. She saw the video of us walking the red carpet. She saw the diamonds around my neck. She saw Mia in her ice blue dress, looking regal and happy. "Hey, Lisa, break's over," her manager yelled from the doorway. He was a 19-year-old kid with a power trip. "Get back on register 4. Clean up the spill in aisle 9 first." Lisa looked at the phone. She looked at the picture of the niece she had called trash. She looked at the sister she had mocked for being poor. She started to cry. Not the pretty, manipulative tears she used to cry to get money from Mom. These were ugly, heaving sobs of regret. She realized, sitting in that break room that smelled of bleach and misery, that she could have been there. She could have been Aunt Lisa sipping champagne and wearing silk. She could have been family. But she had chosen to be a bully. And now, she was cleaning up spills in aisle 9. Further away, on the outskirts of the city, there is a state-run assisted living facility. It's not a terrible place, but it's gray. The walls are beige. The food is bland. It smells of antiseptic and boiled cabbage. My mother, Margaret, sat in the common room. The TV was always on in the corner, usually tuned to the news. She was playing solitaire with a deck of sticky cards. She looked older. The Botox had worn off, and the stress lines had carved deep valleys into her face. She didn't have her fur coat anymore. She wore a simple knit cardigan provided by the facility. "Look at that," a nurse said, pointing at the TV. "Isn't that a beautiful party?" Margaret looked up. Her eyes squinted. On the screen, Alexander was standing at a podium. I was standing next to him. "That's," Margaret whispered. Her voice was raspy. "That's my daughter." The other residents looked at her. "Sure, Margaret," one of them said sarcastically. "And I'm the Queen of England." "It is," Margaret insisted, her hands shaking. "That's Emily. And that's my granddaughter, Mia." "If that's your daughter," the nurse asked gently, "why are you here, honey? Why aren't you at the party?" Margaret stared at the screen. She saw the love in my eyes as I looked at Mia. She saw the way Alexander held my hand. "Because," Margaret whispered, the truth finally choking her. "Because I bet on the wrong horse." She thought about Kevin. Kevin, the golden boy. Kevin, who was currently sitting in a 6x8 cell at the county detention center, waiting for his sentencing hearing. Kevin didn't have a TV in his cell, but he heard about it. He heard the guards talking. "Did you see the Sterling kid?" one guard asked another outside the bars. "The chairman just announced she's the sole heir. That kid is worth billions." Kevin sat on his bunk, staring at the concrete wall. He remembered the garbage bag. He remembered the look on Mia's face when he yelled at her. He remembered calling her a mistake. He closed his eyes and banged his head back against the wall. Thud, thud, thud. The rhythm of a man realizing he had thrown away a winning lottery ticket because he didn't like the paper it was printed on. Back at the gala, the moment of truth arrived. Alexander tapped the microphone. The room went silent. "Thank you all for coming," Alexander said. His voice was warm but commanding. "Tonight is about celebration. It is about the future." He gestured to Mia. "Many of you know I am a private man. For years, I kept my family out of the spotlight. But tonight, I want to introduce you to the most important person in the Sterling Empire." He lifted Mia up so she could reach the microphone. She didn't shrink away. She stood tall. "Good evening," Mia said. Her voice was clear and steady. "Thank you for coming to my birthday." She paused, and then she switched to Mandarin. She gave a brief, beautiful welcoming speech to our international investors. Then she switched to French, then Spanish. The room was stunned. This wasn't just a rich kid. This was a brilliant mind. "Mia is not just my daughter," Alexander continued, placing a hand on her shoulder. "She is the future chairman of Sterling Global. Tonight, I am officially announcing the formation of the Mia Carter Sterling Trust." He looked directly into the camera lens. He knew they were watching. He knew Kevin, Lisa, and Mom would see this. This trust secures Mia's position as the majority shareholder of the company upon her 18th birthday. Alexander said. And to ensure her protection, the trust includes a specific protective clause. He paused for effect. This clause states that no funds from the Sterling estate, now or in the future, shall ever be distributed to any biological relatives of Emily Carter Sterling outside of her nuclear family. Any attempt to contest this will result in immediate legal action. A murmur went through the crowd. It was a public declaration of war against my family. It was Alexander nailing the door shut. He was ensuring that Kevin and the others could never, ever use Mia for money. Mia, Alexander said, looking down at her. You are a gift. You are the best thing that ever happened to this family. Mia smiled. A smile so bright it outshone the chandeliers. I love you, Daddy. I stepped forward and hugged them both. Flashbulbs erupted like a supernova. In that moment, standing in the center of that light, I felt the final weight lift off my chest. The ghost of the mistake was gone. The shame of the single mom was gone. I wasn't the girl who got thrown out in the snow anymore. I was the matriarch of an empire. Later that night, after the guests had gone and the music had faded, Alexander and I sat on the terrace of the venue, looking out over the city lights. Mia was asleep on a velvet sofa inside, clutching a new teddy bear. Did we go too far? I asked, sipping a glass of water. With the clause? The public announcement. Alexander took my hand. He rubbed his thumb over my wedding ring. Emily, they tried to destroy her spirit. They tried to make her feel worthless. We didn't just need to protect her money. We needed to protect her narrative. Today, the world knows she is valuable. And more importantly, she knows she is valuable. I know, I said softly. I feel sad for them. Is that crazy? It's not crazy, Alexander said. It makes you human. It makes you better than them. You can pity them, Emily, but don't you ever let them back in. I won't, I promised. I thought about Lisa scanning groceries. I thought about Mom playing solitaire in the nursing home. I thought about Kevin staring at a concrete wall. They had their perfect Christmas last year. They had their moment of cruelty where they felt powerful. And the price of that moment was everything. It cost them a relationship with a granddaughter who was going to change the world. It cost them a brother-in-law who would have protected them. It cost them their future. I walked over to the glass railing and looked down at the snow covering the gardens. It looked just like the snow on Kevin's porch. But this time I wasn't cold. Happy birthday, Mia, I whispered into the night air. You're not a mistake. You're the masterpiece. Another Christmas Eve arrived. The cycle of the year had turned once more, bringing us back to the night that started it all. But this Christmas was different. We were at our ski chalet in Aspen. A fire was roaring in the massive stone fireplace, crackling and popping with a comforting rhythm. Outside, snow was falling thick, heavy flakes that blanketed the world in silence. But inside it was warm. I sat on the plush rug, watching Mia and Alexander decorate the tree. It wasn't a designer tree like the one Kevin used to have, where no one was allowed to touch the ornaments. This tree was messy. It was filled with handmade decorations Mia had made in school, popcorn strings, and old sentimental baubles Alexander had kept from his childhood. Higher, Daddy, Mia squealed. Alexander lifted her up on his shoulders so she could place the star on top. Careful, careful. Alexander laughed, pretending to wobble. Mia placed the star. It was crooked. It was perfect. I looked at them and felt a lump in my throat. This was it. This was what I had been searching for my entire life. Not the money, not the chalet, not the private jet that brought us here. It was the safety of knowing that no one in this room was keeping score. No one was judging. No one was going to throw a trash bag at me if I spilled a glass of water. I picked up my journal. I had started writing in it right after the incident with Kevin. I flipped back to the first entry. The pages were stained with tear marks. The handwriting was jagged and angry. I hate them. I hate that they made me feel small. I hate that I still want them to love me. I read those words and felt a strange sense of detachment. It felt like reading a letter from a stranger. The woman who wrote that was scared. She was desperate for approval from people who were incapable of giving it. I turned to a fresh page. I uncapped my pen. "I forgive them," I wrote. It wasn't a forgiveness that meant reconciliation. I wasn't going to invite them here. I wasn't going to unblock Mom's number. Forgiveness didn't mean access. It meant release. I forgave them for being broken. I forgave Kevin for his insecurity that made him cruel. I forgave Mom for her shallowness. I forgave Lisa for her jealousy. I forgave them because hating them was exhausting, and I was too busy being happy to be exhausted. "Penny for your thoughts?" Alexander asked, sitting down next to me on the rug. He handed me a mug of hot cocoa. "Just thinking about the definition of family," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. "And what's the verdict?" "Family isn't blood," I said. "Blood is just biology. It's an accident of birth. Family is the people who pick you up when you fall. Family is the people who stand in the cold with you." Alexander kissed the top of my head. "We're your family, Em. Forever." "Mommy! Look!" Mia shouted. She was holding up a gift she had pulled from under the tree. It was wrapped in messy paper with too much tape. "This one is for you." I took the box. I shook it gently. "What is it?" "Open it," she insisted. I tore the paper. Inside was a framed photograph. It was a picture taken at the gala. It was the three of us. Alexander, me, and Mia, standing on the balcony. We were looking at each other, not the camera. We were laughing. At the bottom, in her careful handwriting, Mia had written, "The Three Musketeers." I traced the words with my finger. "I love it, baby," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "It's better than a scarf, right?" she asked innocently. I froze for a second. Then I laughed. A real belly laugh. "Yes, honey. It's much better than a scarf." I thought about the scarves I had knitted for Kevin and Lisa, the ones Kevin had thrown in the trash. I hoped, wherever they were warm. I genuinely did, because the coldness in their hearts was punishment enough. I stood up and walked to the window. I looked out at the snowy landscape. I remembered the girl I was, the girl who rode in the back of a taxi, shaking with fear, hoping her brother would accept her. I wanted to reach back through time and hug her. I wanted to tell her, "Don't worry, he's gonna throw you out, and it will be the best thing that ever happens to you. Sometimes you have to be rejected to be redirected. Sometimes the door slamming in your face is actually the sound of a cage opening." I turned back to the room. Alexander was chasing Mia around the sofa, pretending to be a tickle monster. The sound of their laughter filled the space, chasing away the shadows of the past. My brother called my daughter a mistake. He was right about one thing: that night was full of mistakes. But Mia wasn't one of them. The mistake was his. The mistake was thinking that he could break us. He didn't know who I married. But more importantly, he didn't know who I was. He thought I was trash. I turned out to be the one thing he could never afford: a woman who knows her worth. I walked back to the fire, sat down with my real family, and watched the snowfall. It was going to be a beautiful Christmas. As I close this chapter of my life, I want to leave you with something more than just a dramatic story. I want to leave you with a challenge. We often spend years of our lives trying to fit into boxes that were made by other people. We try to please parents who will never be satisfied. We try to impress siblings who are competing with us. We tolerate disrespect because we are afraid of being alone. But here is the truth. You cannot heal in the same environment that made you sick. My trash bag moment was painful. It was humiliating, but it was necessary. If Kevin hadn't been so cruel, I might have stayed. I might have kept trying to buy their love with knitted scarves and silence. I might have let Mia grow up thinking she was second best. His cruelty set me free. So look at your own life. Who is holding the garbage bag? Who is making you feel like you don't belong? Don't wait for a billionaire in a Rolls-Royce to save you. You save yourself the moment you decide that you deserve better. You save yourself the moment you walk out the door and don't look back. Thank you for listening to my story. It wasn't easy to relive, but if it helps just one person stand up for themselves, then it was worth it. Have you ever had a moment where you realized your family, or the people you thought were family, didn't have your back? What was your trash bag moment that made you finally walk away? I want to hear your story. Please share your experience in the comments below. Let's create a community here where we remind each other that we are not mistakes. Or, if this story resonated with you and you agree that family is defined by love, not blood, simply comment the word good below. Seeing that word tells me that you understand the lesson, and it helps this message reach more people who might need to hear it. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe. We are building our own family right here, one that supports each other. Merry Christmas, and remember, you are valuable, you are worthy, and you belong.